Sarah Mitchell adjusted her blazer nervously as she walked through the bustling corridors of the WNBC studios in New York City. The autumn wind had disheveled her carefully styled brown hair, and she quickly tucked a loose strand behind her ear. At 32, Sarah had worked her way up from local news to become one of the network's most promising correspondents, known for her composed demeanor and incisive questioning. "You've got the Ali interview tomorrow," her producer, Mark, reminded her, handing over a thick folder of research. "We've been trying to get this for months. Don't waste it on softball questions." Sarah nodded, taking the folder. Muhammad Ali, the three-time heavyweight champion, had largely retreated from public life in recent years as his Parkinson's disease progressed. This rare interview was scheduled to coincide with the 25th anniversary of his lighting the Olympic torch in Atlanta, a moment etched in sporting history. "I know how significant this is," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite her nerves. "My father was his biggest fan. Watched every fight." What Sarah didn't mention was that her late father, a Vietnam veteran who had struggled with PTSD, had found in Ali a figure of unwavering principle. Her father had often spoken of how Ali sacrificed years of his career by refusing to be drafted, standing by his beliefs despite overwhelming public pressure. Those kitchen table conversations had shaped Sarah's own journey into journalism, a pursuit of truth regardless of consequences. That evening in her small Upper West Side apartment, Sarah spread her research across her dining table. Her cat, Jasper, purred contentedly as he walked across her notes. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping rhythmically against her windows. "This has to be different," she murmured to herself, reviewing questions that dozens of journalists had asked. Ali over his storied career. Everyone knew about the fights, the poetry, the showmanship. But Sarah wanted something deeper, something that revealed the man behind the mythology. Her phone buzzed with a text from her colleague, David. "Don't forget, the network wants ratings. Get him to talk about the controversies." Sarah frowned. Yes, controversy drove viewership, but Ali was more than his provocative statements or his feud with Frazier. There was dignity in his current silence, in the way his once boundless physical energy had been constrained by illness but not conquered. As midnight approached, Sarah found herself watching footage of Ali's 1996 Olympic torch moment. Despite trembling hands, his face had radiated such pure determination as he lit the flame. The crowd's roar seemed to wash through him, a moment of collective recognition of human courage. In that footage, Sarah found her angle. Not the brash young champion, but the man who had faced physical decline with the same courage he had once shown in the ring and in his political stands. What sustained such courage over a lifetime? That was the conversation she wanted to have. Sarah closed her laptop and glanced at the framed photo on her bookshelf. Her father in his army uniform, young and uncertain, before Vietnam changed him. She wondered what he would ask Ali if he were still alive. "I'll make this count, Dad," she whispered, turning off the lights. If this story has made you feel something already, no matter how small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and tell me where you're watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel. The Roosevelt Hotel's conference room had been transformed for the interview. Network technicians bustled around, adjusting lights and checking sound levels. Outside, spring sunshine bathed Manhattan in a golden glow, though none of it reached this windowless space. Sarah arrived 2 hours early, reviewing her notes one final time. Her producer approached, coffee in hand. "The network executives will be watching live," Mark said, his voice tight with tension. "This is a big get for us. The competing channels are already talking about it." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of expectation. "I'm ready." When Muhammad Ali arrived, the room fell silent. At 74, he moved slowly, assisted by 2 aides. His once powerful frame appeared diminished, yet he carried himself with unmistakable dignity. His face, less expressive due to Parkinson's, still commanded attention. "Mr. Ali," Sarah said, extending her hand, "thank you for agreeing to this interview." Ali nodded, his grip surprisingly firm despite the visible tremor. He was seated carefully in the arranged chair, his aide adjusting the microphone on his lapel. The cameras rolled. Sarah began with questions about his Olympic torch moment, watching as Ali listened attentively. His responses came slowly, his voice soft and sometimes difficult to understand, but his mind remained sharp. "Many people remember you lighting the torch in Atlanta," Sarah said. "What was going through your mind at that moment?" Ali paused, gathering his thoughts. "Pride," he said finally. "Not for me. Pride for how far we'd come as a nation." As the interview progressed, Sarah sensed something beneath his measured responses, a contemplative quality she hadn't expected. When the conversation turned to his boxing career, Ali's eyes brightened with recognition of glories past, but without the bombast of his younger years. "You once said I am the greatest before it was widely accepted," Sarah noted. "Where did that confidence come from when the world doubted you?" Ali shifted slightly in his seat. "Not confidence," he replied after a moment. "Purpose. When you know your purpose, fear doesn't matter." An aide approached, signaling they should take a break. The cameras stopped rolling and staff brought water. Sarah noticed Ali seemed tired but determined to continue. During the break, she stepped outside the conference room, taking a deep breath. Her phone showed 3 messages from network executives, all pleased with the footage so far, but Sarah felt she hadn't yet reached the heart of what she wanted to ask. When they resumed, she decided to change direction. "Mr. Ali, you've lived several lifetimes in one. Celebrated champion, political figure, humanitarian. What has been the greatest fight of your life?" Sarah asked, moving away from her prepared questions. Something in Ali's expression changed, a recognition, perhaps, that this wasn't just another interview cycling through familiar territory. The interview room grew noticeably quieter as everyone sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The technicians, typically distracted with their equipment, now watched with undivided attention. Ali's aide leaned forward slightly, concerned about his charge's energy levels, but unwilling to interrupt this moment. Muhammad Ali looked directly at Sarah, his gaze steady despite his physical limitations. When he spoke, his words came deliberately, each one carefully formed against the constraints of his condition. "The greatest fight," he began, his voice soft but clear, "wasn't in any ring." He paused, gathering strength, and Sarah waited patiently, resisting the journalistic instinct to fill the silence. "The greatest fight is always with yourself. To stay true when being false would be easier." A technician bumped against a light stand, the small sound amplified in the hushed room. Outside, through the walls, came the muffled sounds of New York traffic, a world continuing its pace, while inside, time seemed suspended. "When I refused the draft," Ali continued, "I lost everything, my title, my livelihood, my public standing." Sarah nodded, remembering her father's stories of that time, how controversial Ali's stance had been, how deeply it had divided America. "I couldn't go kill poor people who never called me names," Ali said, referencing his famous quote. His hands trembled more visibly now, but his voice gained strength. "The greatest fight is saying no when saying yes would save you trouble." Sarah felt something shift within her chest, a tightening that surprised her. She thought of her father again, who had gone to Vietnam because he couldn't find the courage to refuse, and who had returned a different man. "That decision cost you 3 prime years of your career," Sarah said. "Do you ever regret it?" Ali's expression softened and something like a smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Regret is interest on a debt you didn't need to take." The simplicity and depth of his answer hung in the air. Sarah found herself momentarily unable to continue, struck by how Ali had distilled such profound wisdom into a few words. "You faced many challenges since then," Sarah said, regaining her composure, "including Parkinson's for nearly half your life. How do you maintain your spirit facing such a difficult condition?" Ali shifted slightly, his movements measured and deliberate. "This body is not me," he said after a long pause. "It's just the house I live in." He gestured to his trembling hands. "These hands once shook the world. Now they just shake." A soft laugh rippled through the room, Ali's self-deprecating humor breaking the intensity. "But I'm still the same man, inside. The same purpose." "And what is that purpose now?" Sarah asked. Ali's gaze became distant for a moment, looking beyond the cameras and lights to something only he could see. "To remind people that what makes us great is not what we achieve, but what we overcome." He paused again, each word chosen carefully. "And who we help along the way." Sarah felt a sudden warmth behind her eyes, a pressure building that she fought professionally to control. Something about Ali's words had reached beyond her journalistic detachment to touch a deeper, more personal place. The interview was scheduled to last 45 minutes, but as they approached the hour mark, neither Sarah nor the producers made any move to conclude. There was a rare quality to the conversation that everyone in the room recognized, something authentic that transcended the usual format of celebrity interviews. "You've met countless people throughout your life," Sarah said. "Presidents, other athletes, world leaders. Who left the greatest impression on you?" Ali's expression changed subtly, a warmth entering his eyes. "Not the famous ones," he said. "The ordinary people who showed extraordinary courage." He told a story about visiting a children's hospital in the 1980s, meeting a 10-year-old boy battling an aggressive cancer. He looked up at me and said, "I'm going to beat this just like you beat Foreman." Ali's voice softened. "That boy had more courage in his small finger than I had in my whole body." Sarah noticed a technician discreetly wiping his eye. The room had fallen under a collective spell, the boundary between professional detachment and human connection dissolving. "Did he beat it?" Sarah asked quietly. "No," Ali replied, the single word carrying the weight of deep sadness. "But he fought with dignity. That's all any of us can do." Sarah felt something break inside her, a wall she had carefully maintained throughout her career. She thought of her father in his final days, fighting his own battle with the same quiet dignity. "My father was in Vietnam," Sarah said, departing entirely from her prepared questions. "He always said your stand against the draft helped him understand his own experience better, that sometimes the braver choice is refusing to fight when the cause isn't just." Ali nodded slowly, recognition dawning in his eyes. "Your father, was he at peace in the end?" The unexpected question, this legendary figure asking about her father, caught Sarah completely off guard. The cameras continued rolling as her professional composure finally cracked. A tear slipped down her cheek, then another. "I think he was," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "In his own way." Ali reached across the small space between them, a movement clearly requiring effort, and briefly touched her hand. Then he won, his greatest fight too. The simple gesture and profound words opened something in Sarah that years of professional discipline couldn't contain. On live television, watched by executives, colleagues, and soon millions of viewers, She cried quietly, but openly. The studio fell completely silent. No one moved to cut the feed or call for a break. There was a collective recognition that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. Human connection in its purest form. After a moment, Sarah gathered herself. "Thank you," she said simply. Ali nodded, understanding in his eyes. Truth always deserves tears sometimes. When the interview finally concluded, nobody in the room spoke immediately. The typical post-interview bustle was replaced by a reverent quiet. Sarah thanked Ali again, and as he was helped to his feet, the entire crew spontaneously stood in respect. Later that evening, as the unedited interview aired, social media exploded with reaction. The hashtag #ShareAliTruth began trending nationwide. Viewers shared stories of their own greatest fights, internal battles fought away from public view. The moment of Sarah's tears was clipped and shared millions of times, not as exploitation, but as celebration of authentic human emotion in a medium often criticized for its superficiality. The network phone lines were flooded with calls, not with complaints about a journalist showing emotion, but with gratitude for a moment of genuine connection. In a media landscape often dominated by conflict and sensationalism, the interview stood as a testament to the power of vulnerable truth. For Sarah, watching alone in her apartment as reactions poured in, the professional implications, positive as they were, seemed secondary. Something more significant had happened. In seeking to reveal the man behind the legend, she had discovered something about herself. She looked again at her father's photograph and whispered, "I think I finally understand what you meant, Dad." Outside her window, the New York skyline glittered against the night sky. Millions of lights representing countless untold stories, each with their own greatest fights being waged behind closed doors. If you made it this far and felt every word, don't leave without subscribing, okay? I tell these stories with my heart in my hands to reach people like you who feel, who get emotional, who truly live. If this touched you deeply, give back, comment, subscribe. Come be part of this family with me until the next video.